Hey everyone, welcome. It is so good to be here. I know that I'm doing this a little bit earlier than normal this time around, but I've been called to come on a little bit earlier than the new moon, a few days beforehand. So, our new moon this month, hey Jesse, so good to see you. Thanks for being here. Our new moon this month happens on the 30th, May 30th, which is this coming Monday. It happens at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So obviously, do your own calculations if you're not on Eastern. Um, but that's what's going on. For those of you who perhaps were in other time zones when the new moon and lunar eclipse, or excuse me, solar eclipse occurred last month, where it would have occurred on May 1st, this is actually technically a black moon for you guys, which means that it is a new moon. You've It's the second new moon you've had in a single month. So you had the first new moon on May 30th, and the second would, or excuse me, May 1st, and the second one would be on May 30th or May 31st, depending on where you're located. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Black moon energy is going to be permeating the collective no matter what. I'm going to be closing my eyes a lot today because there's a lot that's just pooling through and channeling through. So I'm listening to that and I'm going to share with you guys as it comes through. But black moon energy is about closing out old cycles. It's about revisiting old cycles and seeing, all right, how can I do this differently this time? Or how can I approach this in a new way? Or just even being more mindful of it, of, oh, okay, this pattern is showing up again. All right, I'm just going to notice it. I'm just going to notice this pattern. And sometimes even noticing our patterns can bring us to a place where we actually are approaching them differently just by default, because we're conscious of what's happening. So that wanted to come through. In 12 sign astrology, this new moon is showing up in the sign of Gemini, which is the sign of communication. It's the sign of the twins. There's a lot of energy moving for communication here right now. And so here's what's really interesting, and this is what I wanted to speak to in terms of this new moon. For those of you who are in the US, hey Hester, thanks for being here. For those of you who are in the US, this Monday is known as Memorial Day. So it's a holiday weekend. Many folks here in the US are getting ready to spend the entire weekend with their families. And we are in the midst of Mercury retrograde. And we are in the midst of a new moon in Gemini. Gemini and Mercury are basically best friends. Okay, they're constantly talking back and forth, pun intended, because they both rule communication. And so what's happening is when we have Mercury retrograde in occurrence, what's going on is Mercury is asking for us to slow down and really pay attention to our communication, really pay attention to how we're showing up, really pay attention to how we are reacting to other people's communications that may be even potentially miscommunications. A lot of the time during this cycle, that's what's happening, is there is a miscommunication. And so we're just being asked to slow down and really pay attention to that and really be present with that. And so we're being asked to slow down in this Mercury retrograde cycle, which in 12 sign astrology actually started in Gemini, which is where our sun currently is in 12 sign, and where our new moon is going to be on Monday. So basically, so what's really interesting is that Mercury retrograde started in Gemini, and then as Mercury moved backwards in the sky, according to, our eyes and our perception as we're looking from Earth. Hey Jordan, thanks for being here. As Mercury moved backwards, it actually moved into Taurus, which is where we're finding this new moon in 13 sign astrology. So if you look at the truth of our skies, there's a lot of Taurus energy that's surrounding this new moon. There was a lot of Taurus energy that was happening with Mercury retrograde in 13 sign astrology as well. And so what we're looking at here basically is this anchoring in of a new, more solid awareness of our communication skills, of our personal communications with ourselves, right? How are you talking to yourself? Of our communications with others, of our relationships in general. All of that stuff is pulling through, and it's really, really, really big around this new moon. Um, and this Mercury retrograde cycle, which actually ends 3 to 4 days after this new moon occurs, depending on where you're located. So, all of that's going on. We also, as we have this new moon, are going to be experiencing essentially a conjunction between Jupiter and Mars in the sky, in the sign of Taurus, I believe. Hold up. Let me take a peek at this. Let me take a peek at my notes here. Just make sure I'm saying that right. Because I'm questioning that. Okay, yep, I'm wrong. Aries. My bad. Sorry. So, in 12 sign astrology, we've got Jupiter and Mars meeting in Aries. In 13 sign astrology, they are meeting in Pisces. So we've got a lot of this masculine energy that's coming through, and a lot of what's wanting to be cleared out of our communication specifically is old habits around anger and anger outbursts, and like how can we approach anger in a healthy way where we're not projecting onto other people, or we're not just exploding and like shoving our energy onto other people, or like blasting them with it, or whatever, or holding our anger in and swallowing it and like allowing it to just like curdle on our insides before we just all of a sudden erupt, right? A lot of that energy is wanting to be reworked, revamped, just taken a new look at. We're taking a new look at those patterns and how we can interact with our anger in a much healthier way. If you guys have not listened to my podcast episode just yet on Healthy Emotionality 101, it's the most recent podcast episode that I released just last week. I definitely suggest going ahead and giving that a listen, because it's going to help you to understand how to engage with your anger and actually all of your emotions in a healthier way. Jesse says, I have to come back and watch the rest of this later. Feel like something I really need to hear right now. Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here now and later. And I'm sending you love, Jesse. It's so good to see you. So all of that's coming through, and you guys, it's more of a punch on, no pun intended, on what we entered 2022 with and what we are exiting 2022 with. There are so many codexes that are streaming through so big around really integrating new masculine codings, divine masculine codings, and really stripping ourselves of those toxic masculine codings. Toxic masculinity in this instance would look like barking at people. It would look like just like losing it with people, just like completely losing it with people. And just like anger outbursts and no control over our emotions and etc. So that would be that toxic masculine and actually toxic feminine energy as well, when we have like that kind of wild emotional just like outburst of feeling that's happening. It's very like, it's just not, we're not tapped in with ourselves. It's not controlled. It's not, and that's not to say that we have to have control over our emotions, right? There's sometimes no controlling our emotions, but it's more so about how we go about unleashing them when we're interacting with others. So that's just all something to be super mindful of as we are interacting with our families this weekend. If you are working with your family or engaging with your family or loved ones at all this weekend, just something to be mindful of. let me see, what else does this new moon want to say? Um, Yeah, you guys, there's just so much parceling out around wording. Just really using I language, right? I am feeling XYZ, or it sounds to me like XYZ when you XYZ, right? You really focusing on the self, utilizing I language is going to be so important. Asking for what you want and being really direct about that, right? Um, Someone says, okay, I'll give you an example. I'm currently with my parents. This is, my background looks different because I'm visiting my parents right now, and I was out on a walk with them earlier today, and my mom had brought up kind of a little bit of a hard conversation with me the other day, and I was in the middle of working, and she was about to run off to something, and it just wasn't great timing. And so we both said, okay, let's table that, and we'll talk about it later. And so she started bringing it up on our walk today, and she was like, yeah, at some point before you leave this time, hey Kate, thanks for being here. She's like, I really want to have this conversation. And I said, okay. And I kind of took a moment and I checked in with myself on it, and I was like, I want to have this conversation, but something just doesn't feel 100% right about this. And I realized it was because I am currently feeling like there's so much in my life that's like new or changing or shifting or whatever, and it feels like it's too much to have a really raw, vulnerable conversation that's going to bring up a lot of emotionality at this point. And so I asked for what I wanted and needed at that moment. And I said, you know what, Mom, I love you. I really want to have this conversation. I truly, truly, truly do. And also, may I ask for the grace to be able to kind of flow with that at a time when I'm feeling a little bit safer to do that, right? When I don't feel like I have all of these things that are kind of like up in the air and shifting and changing and etc. Like when I can get to a safer place in myself that feels more rooted and grounded and centered, um, I would love to be able to approach you at that moment in time. Would you be comfortable kind of waiting for that to happen? And it took her a moment. She was like, like, I don't love like putting the brakes on things like this, and I kind of like to get things done with and over with. And I was like, yeah, I know. And she was like, but I guess that's my work to do. All right. I guess that's my work to do, to like sit with that and feel uncomfortable that it's not happening right away and etc. Um, and I want to let you guys know, like, my communication with my mom has not always been this way. Like, it took us a really long time and a lot of work, both individually and together, to get to a point where we can actually communicate in this way. And it's so glorious, and I'm so grateful for it. And I share that specifically because it's like you can also have that too. Like if you are willing to put in the work, and the other person who you're having a relationship with, whether that is your mom or your dad or your guardian or your brother, sister, sibling, partner, friends, business worker or coworker, like whatever the relationship is, if you are willing to do the work and put in the time and effort and energy, and so are they, like, it might take years, it might take a long time, but you can get to a good point of communication. And this new moon, a healthy and cohesive communication, and this new moon in Gemini, amidst Mercury retrograde and also it being a black moon, right? That kind of bookend these old patterns that are surfacing and asking for us to look at them in new ways or with more consciousness around them. This new moon is a really great starting point for that. Like, if you haven't had those harder conversations in a slow and mindful way with your loved ones, where you're like, you know what, I really want to start trying to have better communications with you. What do you feel? How do you feel about that? Like, I'm really willing to put in the time and effort and energy around this. Are you? Something like that could actually be really powerful and really vulnerable um, in a way that kind of pulls more vulnerability out of them as well. And That's actually divine masculine codex right there, because it's like you are having this divine feminine interaction with yourself and with the world and with your relationships, where you're like, I'm feeling this thing and I'm going to allow myself to feel this vulnerability. And then that divine masculine comes in and it's like, let's do something about it, right? Like, let's come in, let's do something about it. So it's just yeah, this energy, it's, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little sticky. It feels a little bit like the image I just keep getting is tire treads, which is so interesting, like tire treads on like really soft, like muddy clay or something, right, where it's just like, it's like grinding and making up an imprint. But it's, at the same time, it's like through that you're gaining traction, right? So it's like, even though there's like this soft, and maybe you're moving more slowly than you would if you were on hard ground, or if it wasn't, I don't know, I don't, this metaphor isn't coming through verbally as well as I'm seeing it in imagery. But yeah, basically, this is, take it slow and be honest and come in truth and come in peace and come in, like, centeredness. And if you come from all of those places, this new moon could be the most beautiful foundation off of which to build new communication skills. And that's what happens when we have that Gemini energy from 12 sign astrology meeting with that Taurian energy from 13 sign, right? Those two things. Taurus is all about that earthiness, that groundedness, that building of foundation, that, taking steps to implement new ways of being and really anchor them in and down, get a really solid, beautiful foundation. And Gemini is, like I said, all about building those relationship skills, those communication skills, those networking, interacting skills. And so when those two things meet, that's what's happening. We're building with this new moon, with this black moon. We are building new skill sets and anchoring in, or not even building new skill sets. I mean, we are, but we're given the advantage of being able to choose better communication, healthier communication, and choose to anchor those in with our communication, right? I would like to have better communication with you. I would like to start to approach our conversations or our communications in XYZ way. How do you feel about that? Are there any ways in which you believe we could be helpful for each other in this arena? Are there any suggestions you have around how I might better be able to communicate? And guess what? You might get some feedback you don't like. Okay? So just be prepared for that and recognize how your body is responding to that, right? Do you feel a clench in the gut? Do you feel disturbed? Do you feel like you don't fully want to connect to the ground through your feet at those moments, right? Just notice what you're feeling, what you're experiencing in your body, and then how you are interacting with that. I'm seeing stuff from Hester here. Let's see. She says, yes. Finally changed my relationship with my mom. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. And then she says, oh my God, the more I learn to communicate clearly, the easier life becomes. That's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I am right on that same page with you, Hester. Definitely. Hey, Aerosmith, thanks for being here. All right, y'all. I'm going to end this one here. I am so excited to have joined you guys live today to talk about all of this. I hope that you find it to be helpful. I don't think there's going to be an article for this new moon this time around. I think I'm just going to go the video route again. That's what Spirit is kind of pulling through and asking me to do. So I'm here for it. If you want to find the replay, it's on Facebook on the Doorway to Self page, on Instagram at Doorway to Self, and it's also going to be on YouTube here shortly as well on the Doorway to Self channel. So you can be sure to like the video there and subscribe to the channel and share it around. And I wish you guys an absolutely beautiful holiday weekend if you're here in the States and it's a holiday for you. And I also wish you, no matter where you are in the world, an amazing new moon. And just one last thing, just notice where you are struggling with this new moon, and notice what changes you can make in yourself in order to meet those challenges. Or, and slash, or, notice where maybe you need some extra comfort with this new moon. Right? Notice where maybe you might need to wrap yourself in a nice warm blanket. Or maybe you need a bite of your absolute favorite chocolate in the world and just to like sit there and allow it to melt on your tongue. Maybe you need some time away from your family, right? Maybe you need your own walk, or maybe you need to go off in your own quiet space and journal, or listen to music, or talk to a friend on the phone to get new perspective or something like that. So I just wanted to throw that out there too, because there's going to be a lot of nourishment and self-nourishment that's needed in this new moon time. There's a lot of vulnerability here right now. There's a lot of I feel like I was saying this to my best friend on the phone yesterday, that like our entire human race is just in the midst of an emotional apocalypse right now. Like literally everything in our emotions is just coming to collapse upon itself, and we're needing to restructure and reframe the entire way in which we approach emotionality and emotions in general and communication and just like literally everything. Everything we knew before is completely up in the air. And we keep getting challenged time and time and time and time again over the last 2 years. And it's just going to continue. And so what that means is not only self-preservation, but also self-protection, which is similar but slightly different. And mainly doing that through self-nourishment. So that it's not self-preservation from a place of scarcity or self-protection from a place of like, ooh, don't hurt me. But it's from this place of like, no, I am nourishing myself from the inside out. I am giving myself everything that I need emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. I'm giving myself everything I need to feel safe and secure. And I'm not saying you have to do it alone, right? I'm saying that's you in tandem with whatever relationships you have with the spirit realm, with your guides, with whatever, whomever, with nature, right? Whatever plants or trees or etc. And with your family and friends. We can't do this alone. My dear mentor Nicole Peretti always says we work in pairs, and we have to work in pairs. We can't do this alone. And whether that's you and a tree, or you and a guide, or you and your mom, or you and a partner, or whomever, you're not doing it alone ever. Even if it feels like you are. And sometimes it's empowering to do it alone by yourself. But even in those moments, you're not alone. You're with your childhood self, or you're with your future self, or you're with your past life self, or some other version of you. So yeah, we all need to commit to really nourishing ourselves and finding what's nourishing and comforting and enlivening and joyful at this point in time. So yeah, I think that's the last thing I want to leave you with. And Hester says, have a beautiful day. Thanks for sharing your insights. Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, you guys, I love you so much. Take care of yourselves. Be well. And happy new moon.